It's about history. It's about preservation. It's about sense of place here on Eastern Long Island. With Esperanza Leon, I'm Irwin Levy, and this is Our Hamptons. Esperanza, good morning.
Hello, Irwin.
You know, Esperanza, first of all, I know our audience has heard me say this on 100 plus episodes of Our
We're
Hamptons
so
to this
excited.
point. Yeah, they're good, but they're going to hear it again. I am so excited for this particular episode because every place, every town, every community should have a sip and soda,
This is very true.
right?
Yes.
And we have a very special guest, the owner of Sip and Soda, who I'm going to bring out in a minute, Mark Parash. But you know what I liken this to, Esperanza? This is like a brick and mortar metaphor for all that is right with the world. Mark, how's that for a build-up? But
I just
that's
put like a little angel halo above my head for about a minute.
you've
I
earned
see it.
that. So without further ado, we're going to bring in the owner of Sip and Soda, 40 Hampton Road in Southampton Village, Mr. Mark Parash. Mark, welcome to Our Hamptons podcast.
Good morning, Esperanza and Irwin, and thank you for having me and Sip and Soda, more importantly, on our Hamptons. And I believe you guys are going on 3.5 years to 4 years now with your podcast.
It will be 4 years in May, so yes, we are almost
But
4
who's
years.
counting? Yeah.
But who's
Congratulations.
counting? And
You
who's
only got
counting?
65 more to catch up to me.
That is exactly
go.
correct. But our mantra from the beginning was, as long as we're having fun, we're going to keep doing it. And Esperanza hasn't broken up with me yet, so right now we're still good to go.
Terry's
So-
happy about that.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
entertained.
Exactly. But, you know, Mark, you know, the storyline here is just so extraordinary because it really goes beyond Sip and Soda, right? I mean, this storyline, and this is really right off, you have a phenomenal little history page on your website, and really we really didn't need much more in this. This really started, Esperanza, 108 years ago in Oyster Bay, Long Island, with your grandparents, William and Nicoletta, right?
Yes, yes.
So it was sort of, that was the blueprint for what was to come, right?
I'm imagining Oyster Bay in 1918. I mean, really, like this.
We lived for 36 years in Great Neck, Long Island, Up Island. You know, Oyster Bay was a waterfront town. It's had like a small town kind of vibe. I mean, back then, it really, obviously, it was a small town vibe. But they were there for 7 years. But here's where, because this isn't our Oyster Bay podcast, Esperanza, this is our Hamptons
Bring it to
podcast.
the east.
So, Mark, in 1925, your grandparents moved to Bridgehampton, right? And
Yes.
you knew your grandparents. I mean, you
I
remember.
did not.
Oh, you did not. Okay.
I did not. My grandmother passed away when I was about 2. My grandfather passed away well before I was even thought of.
Okay. But so 1925, they moved and they bought. Were they the first owners of the Candy Kitchen?
You know,
or-
that's something
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure of. I don't know. There's speculation that they were, and there's speculation that there was a place there already. I've never had it confirmed. You know, my father and uncle loved them to death, but they weren't the greatest sharers of information. You know, as we go on
Not
this podcast.
atypical in families.
Yes. As we go on this podcast, you'll hear I get a lot of my information from customers about my family.
Right.
So,
Interesting.
you know,
Yeah.
it was always presented to me that they were the owners, whether they were the first or not, but I always assumed that it was. I believe they were pretty darn close to
Right.
being, because it was, you know, when they tell stories about what it was like in Bridgehampton growing up.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And
Do you
because
have a sense of why they came this way?
So it's a matter of fact, so yesterday, I feel like I'm a celebrity because yesterday Doug Gee from News 12 was at my shop doing a little thing on Sip and Soda, and it happened to be, first of all, my grandparents from a really small town outside of Sparta. I mean, it's small. We went and retraced our roots back in '94, and when we pulled into this village, I was just like, "Whoa, this is like a throwback." And so it was basically just they were all self-sufficient. I mean, everything they had in their backyard, between their goats and their sheep, all their vegetables, they had that was it. And they were really just in the valley of mountains. It was all agriculture around there, around the area were just olives and lemons and things like that. So they did the Great Migration. So they came over to the States. My grandfather did in 1918. So at some point they ended up in Oyster Bay, but it was first via New York City because he was a peanut. He sold peanuts in a cart and he pushed them around. And one of the funniest stories my dad ever told me was that, back then the police in New York City would go around and they would kick my grandfather out of the area because he would say, "Hey, this is Irish territory. You can't be here." So somehow he found his way out to Oyster Bay and Candy Kitchen in Oyster Bay, and he started. And why did
And
they
it
come
was a
there?
candy kitchen in Oyster Bay,
Correct.
to be clear. Yeah.
Correct. So I asked someone yesterday, there was a customer that's a friend of ours that grew up in the same small village in Greece that my grandparents did. And that was one of the reasons why he came over here. Just like Gus from the Candy Kitchen is from the same village in Greece. That's why he came over. He actually worked at Sip and Soda for his first job before he went to Candy Kitchen.
Oh my God.
So your grandparents were the pioneers, and then others followed, sort of.
It's really, yeah, I could
how
say,
it works
yeah,
a lot of
yeah,
times.
it was because there was a whole slew of them from this little town called Ikea. Anyway, they came to this area because Hempstead, this is what I found out yesterday from George. Everybody was George, Jimmy, Costas and Gus, and that's all the Greeks' names. So George said, well, there was a big Greek church in Hempstead. So they came to Hempstead and they realized that, well, everybody's got a coffee shop now because that's what all the Greeks are doing. So you can't compete. So then you move out east. So my grandparents moved out east. Bridgehampton, why, I have no idea. I don't, again, obviously I've never heard, but they did. And that's how we got to Bridgehampton.
It makes me wonder from your description, not that this is at all like the Mediterranean at all, but the agricultural aspect of it, maybe the rural aspect, maybe the
Yeah.
remoteness. Who knows if that was something that, there's this place out really far out, and it will remind you a little bit of where you're
Yeah,
from.
I can imagine that had the sense, and also why the diner luncheonette business. I mean, that's
Right.
what I always wanted too. However, something they could jump into very easily. They both weren't educated past the sixth grade. So what they do is they had a work ethic, and they used that work ethic, and they learned as much as they could in the period of time while they're in the States to go and say, "Hey, look, this is how everybody's doing it, so let's do it."
Yeah. And Esperanza, it's such a, you talk about like a real immigrant story, how,
I was just thinking
right,
that.
1918, probably didn't come over here with oodles of money, probably didn't speak the language all that well, but immediately literally within the first year, opened a business.
Yeah, no,
I,
a few years after that, after he got, I guess, kicked out of the
the nut business,
know,
right? Yeah.
yeah, the cart business is selling,
Right.
you
But
know,
what
he
a,
decided that, look, this is something they could do and they could figure it out. And voila, I would always have loved to have a conversation with my grandparents just to ask them
Isn't it? Yeah.
all these
You
questions.
wish you could time travel, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
I always remember my mom lived to almost 95, and she was of sound mind and body. Esperanza knew her well. I mean, to the
Rhoda was
end,
great.
and like in the last few years, I literally interviewed her and I put it on YouTube, and I used to save these to have an oral history and the things you learn. And to the point earlier, Esperanza, I think you were making it, people in that generation didn't really talk about things, medical issues, what happened during the war. Like it was very different than today, very closed mouth. But
very reserved, very close. Yeah.
yeah. And,
Yes.
but like hearing, like sometimes I even go back and I look at that and the things she would say. And again, she was also first generation. My grandfather owned a mattress store in Brooklyn. They lived behind it. She slept in the same room with her brothers till she got married. The whole kind of experience, probably similar to this one, which is just fascinating.
My
Well,
father and
yeah, I
uncle
mean-
shared a bed for
Yeah.
a long, long time. Again, they were born above the Candy Kitchen.
Yeah.
both of them, in
And
the apartment. You weren't going to a hospital back then.
no. And
He shared, I've seen some pictures of my father with a little cowboy hat on a donkey that we kept in the back of the Candy Kitchen.
oh my,
It's just amazing. And seeing Main Street, Bridgehampton, really sort of dirt roadish,
yeah.
back then, it's pretty wild. And there was nothing going on back then.
I know. And, Esperanza and I have talked about this ad nauseum on countless episodes of Our Hamptons, how this place is sort of remote now. It's not exactly around the corner now, but imagine it 100 years ago, the commitment to come to a place like this with no
Yeah.
infrastructure, poor roads, and
Right.
just,
And who would be your customers?
yeah,
Right.
yeah. I mean, it's,
Farmers, the farmers and all the people that were doing the same thing that they were attempting to do, but they were the obviously the community members were established, and then they were just joining. Obviously the potato
right.
industry back then was the huge lifeblood of out east, and Bridgehampton was, with all the property, probably one of the major players.
And Esperanza, you and I have spoken about this so many times. Yes, Southampton Village, East Hampton Village, there were summer colonies there, but all in between where the Candy Kitchen was, to Mark's point, farmland. I mean, these were farmers. Those were the customers. I have to digress about one thing you said before we move on to shifting them to Matatuck, how you said everyone was a Gus or a Costas, or I remember a Saturday Night Live skit where they did a skit about a diner and how, out of God knows how many years ago it was, and they sort of said, yeah, Gus, owner of all diners, in the tri-state area, right? Like it was just, they were
It's
so
uncanny how true it is.
entrenched in that industry, and I mean, I remember as a kid growing up in Queens, let's go to the diner. And I mean, the cheeseburger and onion rings at 11:30 at night, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's what we did. So your father, your uncle, born above the Candy Kitchen. And now, is there a timeline? Because then you
In
left,
Bridgehampton.
right, right. And which leads me to believe that Candy Kitchen was named that in Oyster Bay. So even though we don't, I tend to, being an amateur detective, I tend to think they might have been the originals too. Same name. I mean, not putting her hand on a Bible, but so then they moved to the North Fork. Do you know the storyline behind that? Was there a reason that they left and moved? Because they opened the Paradise Sweet Shop in Matatuck.
So this is where it gets fun. This is where you get a little bit of curveball. So my grandfather had a wealthy uncle that lived in Jacksonville, Florida. So he had reached out and said, hey, come down here. You'll make a lot of money. So then we throw in this other thing. So Spiros Stavropoulos, who was from the same village as my grandfather, was coming over from Greece also. And there was sort of like this unwritten deal or word of mouth deal that Spiro's coming over, why don't you take over this place and we'll figure it all out later. Because they were leaving. Spiro and my grandfather was Apostoli, which is Paul, were buds from back in the yacht. So it was sort of like, okay, we're going, you get this place and we'll see it. Well, Jacksonville didn't work out. So they decided to come back up. Where are they going to go? Candy Kitchen's got it. Now Spiros Stavropoulos has got it. So they said, well, we're going to go to the North Fork. So we go to Matatuck. Why? I have no idea. Maybe there was a couple Greek people in Matatuck. That's sort of the way that they did. They were just like, Greeks were beacons to other Greeks. And so they go there and they opened up a place called the Paradise Sweet Shop on Love Lane in Matatuck. And that was probably in the mid to early 40s. And they get entrenched there. My father and uncle go to school there. They have this place. I actually just saw a couple people that were in the store recently that remember the Paradise.
That's incredible.
This is where it gets fun because all the information I can get from people who randomly walk in. They're 80 some odd years old, close to 90, but they're like, oh my God, I remember your father and your uncle and your grandfather. So they did that, and I guess that didn't go the direction they wanted to go. My dad was the only one that went to college because he was the oldest. So therefore, the oldest had the first. So he was the first one to be educated in our family. So he went. My uncle went to the Army for a bit. So I guess along the way, it wasn't working out, and they decided to make a move back to the South Fork. God knows why they chose Southampton. God knows why in 1956, 57, they had the wherewithal to say, we want to come back there and buy a piece of vacant land on Hampton Road and build the building. With what money, I have no idea. But they did it. And I would always like to have that. That's one thing I wish I could do is go back. Yaya and Papu, that's what you call in Greek. Why did you decide to do something that you didn't realize would work? You bought a piece of property, you built a building, you were going to work 7 days a week. Your whole life was there. And, they probably would have just said, because that's what we had to do. And now I am the benefit from their labors, my father and uncle's labor, and to sit there and think about that, I'm actually getting a little bit tingles. I really, It's that whole ethic of we're going to be in control of our destiny.
We talk about this all the time, how, and we've seen this, the foresight not only to start the business, but to own the property. You could withstand everything and
Right.
anything. It doesn't matter if Soda and Sip operated 3 blocks away. You own the building. To your point, you control the destiny, not at the mercy of a landlord. Just what foresight. And yes, I understand. I'm getting tingles, and this is the first time I've ever met you. That kind of story resonates deeply with us. And Esperanza, when you think about this, people, immigrants to this country, uneducated, but just hardworking.
In a way that's for your family, not to steamroll over people, but really just to
Yeah.
improve your life, your family's life, and just have a consistent, sustainable living.
Completely. I'm going to go out on a limb and just say this. That was their legacy. Maybe, Mark, was it conscious that they were saying, well, let's do this because we want to provide for our family? Probably. But and to your point, generations later, 58, that's 68 years later. I mean, still standing.
And the name comes from.
The coolest
So
name.
my
The
uncle-
cool. Thank you, Esperanza. It is the coolest name ever. And we really need to be clear with our audience, for those who don't know. It's not Sip End. It's Sippin'. Sip End. Sip and
Sip and soda.
It is.
And it's not sip and, because it would have the two little.
Correct.
It's sipping.
So super cool. Super
This is
cool.
where it gets fun, because this is where you get into the Greek side of things and the reality of, like, back in 1958, my grandparents are uneducated. So my uncle told me the story finally, because we were doing our 50th anniversary back in 08. I wanted to find out as much as I could. And I said, Uncle Jimmy, how the heck did you come up with Sip and Soda? And he said, so we were sitting around the table and we were coming up Southampton Candy Kitchen. And he said, no, everything's a candy kitchen. And there happened to be a song out at that time called Sippin' Soda Through a Straw. And it happened to be on. And I don't remember the guy's name, but I downloaded it for the anniversary. So we played it at our anniversary day. And it's called Sippin' Soda Through a Straw. I cannot sing, and I'm not going to try and sing, but the verse goes, sippin' soda, sippin' soda, sippin' soda through a straw.
Oh, my God.
And so that's how the name came up.
That's amazing.
I got it.
And of course, it's spelled S-I-P or S-I-P-P-I-N.
Right.
But phonetically speaking, they probably said, well, that sounds right. So let's do that.
Yeah, and also it just looks, it's like graphic. It
Yes.
looks that way. That's just the thing. Yeah, it's just great. I won't divulge what in my family we call your shop.
You can tell that to me another time.
Oh, my
It rhymes
gosh.
with shop.
Oh, my gosh. Esperanza, this is literally the greatest story I've ever heard. Okay. I mean, this has.
When I think about this now, I'm 55 years old. I've been there for about 32 years. And everything's starting to really hit me now about how unbelievable, like, what I have in my life with that place and the people that have come through the doors and, and everything else that, embodies it. It's just fascinating because it's funny at times, it's serious at times, it's endearing at times.
And it's a lot of hard work. I mean, I'm also thinking you were contemporaries. For you to go into the family business, can you share your decision in doing that? Like how that came about?
Yeah. Well, it was the last thing that I was ever going to do. I never worked there as a kid. I think that's the big reason why I'm there. All my cousins and my two brothers did at one point during their, junior high school days. And so my father and uncle were probably in their 40s then. And, they were tough. They were 7 days a week. They were old school, Great story my father tells me. I have to share it because it's funny as heck. When he was at the Paradise on the North Fork in Mattatuck, they were working one day and he says, hey, Pop, I'm going to take a break and go to the beach. And my grandfather looked at him and said, see me go beach, because that's the way he would speak. He means, I don't go to beach, so why should you? So that was the mentality he had. Of course, my father ended up going because he was like, whatever. So, I believe that they were very tough. And I wasn't even interested in coming into the business. I'd actually wanted to open up my own bar. But then I realized in college that probably wasn't the smartest thing. Right. So I was a government major. I had something lined up in DC. But my father called me up X amount of months before graduation and said to me, "What do you plan on doing?" I said, "Well, I got this opportunity in DC and I think I might just go for it." He said, "Great, good for you. But if you're interested, nobody's really wants it." And so I said, "Okay, I'll think about it." And I sat down over a period of time and I loved Southampton. I love the beach. I love golf. I love hunting. I love the outdoors. It just, place is always special to me. I went to school in Philadelphia, so there wasn't much around when it came to water, except for the Schuylkill, which wasn't really pretty. But I would always come home. The first thing I did on break was I'd come home and go to the ocean. So I said, you know what, I'll give it a shot. And that was it. And that was really the simplicity of it.
And I sort of broached this with you before we signed on. Is this was literally the only job you ever had as an adult, so to speak?
I got a very simple life. I'm going to give it to you real quick. Okay. Born in Southampton Village, graduated Southampton High School, went away for 4.5 years because I had a little too much fun one semester. Came back. I got involved in the family business. I've had 3 jobs my whole life. All the businesses are still in business in Southampton Village.
Wow.
Sunrise to Sunset Surf Shop, Rotations Bicycle Center, and Sip and Soda. I live in the house that I grew up in.
Oh my God.
I'm raising my kids there, and I'm in a family business. So,
That's a good life.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
but when I was in my late 20s and 30s, I was actually a little embarrassed by it because I thought it was too simple. But now I embrace it like this is the coolest thing ever.
You don't,
Yeah.
right. And I understand that. Like you don't,
Yeah.
at the time when you're young, wow, this is,
You don't
so
appreciate it.
I'm sort of
Yeah.
pigeonholed here. I'm living in the same
Yes.
place and this is a big
Yes.
world and this and that. But meanwhile, what a good quality of life to live in a place you love, to own a business. And Esperanza, we really should touch on what you said also, because this is a difficult physical business. Okay. I mean, I was in a related industry. I used to have clients that were in your business, and this is you're on your feet. No, you're not breaking concrete. Okay. But it is physical. It is a tiring job to do this kind of work. And that really can't be minimized. And hats
It's
off to
demand
you.
based. It really is demand based. And I
Yes.
always joke about things with people. I'm like, I'm tripolar, because I have business, home, and then whatever else comes into my head at times. But it is, it really is. But, I was taught a great work ethic. I like working. I do like working a lot. I like people, which is,
I was just going to
say,
say
being in
that.
this
So,
business. Yeah, I
you read
do.
our minds. Yeah.
Yeah, people to me are just wealth of relationships, information. I mean, the things that I've learned, the people that I've met, and it's been great. And I've established a lot of good connections and friendships through that place for 32 plus years. And even, now we're getting into like fourth, like, so Esperanza was in a couple weeks ago with her daughter, and I'm sitting there, we're chit chatting, and I'm like, well, this is the third generation McCully. So I get to see this. I have fourth generations.
Having been in a business that, again, went for a very long time, that was always the most rewarding part of it. It was the dollars and cents are another story. It was the relationships you made. These, when you're working like this,
Continuity, Irwin,
the
right? Like that
continuity. Yeah, I mean, you're working this hard. This is not a 9 to 5 job Mark has or that I had back when I had my business, but the relationships you build, these people are your friends. You're going to their weddings, their funerals. I mean, this is
They're part of my life. They are part of my life. If someone doesn't come in, I'm like, what's going on?
Is everything okay? Yeah.
Yeah, right. You come back, I'm like, hey, where have you been? It really is. It becomes, I mean, I see people, honestly, more than my wife sometimes,
No question.
you know,
No
and she'll
question.
tell you about, what's she always say? Oh, I was a single mother growing up. I said, but I was always home by at least 5 o'clock,
Right.
and I was always home by at least 9 o'clock in the summer. So I was
Oh,
always home at some point.
right. No. Oh my gosh. Esperanza, this is like
because Mark makes really good ice cream.
that's
Thank you.
yeah, and apparently that
Can't
the
forget
recipe,
to include that.
the recipe according to the website has never been written down. It's like in somebody's mind over there, right? So God bless them.
Yeah, I'm 55 years old, and I'm starting to realize that this mind might not be remembering everything. So a quick story about that. So back, 30 years ago when I was in the business and my dad's like, okay, I'm going to show you how to make ice cream. As he always did. He just told me what I had to do.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, where's it written down? He goes, what are you talking about? But where are all the recipes? And he says, we don't write them down. They're all up here. And I said to myself, what an idiot. How
Yeah.
stubborn a Greek can he be?
Right.
So guess what?
You've
I
done the
haven't
same
written them
thing.
down either. So the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and I'm pretty stubborn too.
Sort of bring it into present day. And I hate to say we have to start wrapping up Esperanza because I swear to you, not only we're doing this over Zoom, I really feel like driving to Sip and Soda right now and like doing this in person. I can't get enough of this story. I really can't, but we have to be respectful of Mark's time. Bringing it into present day. I mean, obviously you're still there. You're still young. You're only, you volunteered
Yeah.
that you're old. So how do you see like the next, you're just continuing on? Are your children interested in the business? I mean, I don't know how old your kids are, but
My daughter's about to graduate college, but she's had no interest. She's a psychologist, so I
okay,
told her to stay away if she wants to be sane.
right,
My son is a freshman. I don't really see any at this point. I don't see, and I've never ever pressured them to
right.
work there. I made my son work there sometimes when he was being a bad boy at home, so I've penalized him by making him do dishes, which he hated. But no, as of right now, I did. So what I did was I started thinking about this a couple of years ago. We have our signature drink called the Lime Ricky, which is
Yes.
one of the most iconic, old school soda fountain drinks that actually started out as a alcohol-based drink. But it's one of the things that we are really known for besides our ice cream. So I decided that what could I do to keep a legacy going that my grandparents, my father and uncle really got going and made this. So we started bottling it a couple of years ago. And so our hope and plan is to get that going where that leaves some type of legacy for my kids if it ever goes in the direction that we would hope it go. That's about where, like I said, what happened to me maybe will happen with my kids. We'll decide one day they're getting close. They're like, you know what, we love it out here. We have a place. There's a building there that will be there forever. And maybe we can do something with that. So I've never pressured them. My father never did either. So
Right.
Which is notable, and I think is probably the better way to do
yeah,
things.
yeah. I never really got, I'm not tired of that place at all. I mean, I do really generally care about it. I mean, I go in there on my days off. I'll just go in there just to walk around and just see because it's comfortable and it's just,
No doubt.
It's like
there's a lot more about it.
it's a home. It's a home
Yeah,
for you.
it is. It is. So here's a really cool thing that we just are doing, and it's going to bring in another soda, a soda jerk star, as I call myself a soda jerk. So after 40 years, actually, Esperanza, you had some of the chocolate there. Did you that day when you were in with your daughter?
No, oh no, but I know about this. Hold on.
All
Yes,
right.
tell me.
So
Yeah.
we are, after 40 years, bringing back a tradition of making chocolate Easter bunnies. And the last time we did it, I found receipts was from 1986. So my father and uncle and my grandparents back before that, and most luncheonettes did it. Candy Kitchen has done it, and the Star Confectionery in Bridgehampton, and I'm sorry, Riverhead, just sold. And he's a good
Right.
friend of mine, Anthony Maris. And when he was definitive on closing, I reached out to him. I said, I'd love to do this again. My father and uncle never wanted me to do it. They said it was too much work. And I said, you've done it. I have the space. I have the staff. I'd love to redo this. We have all the classic tin molds from the 30s. And so we're about to launch on Saturday our first, it's our reincarnation of a 40-year-old tradition that
Oh my
it's been so much fun working with Anthony in the basement, tempering chocolate, pouring mold. Him and I sharing stories about our fathers who were friends growing up and all that history too. So yeah, and the chocolate's phenomenal.
You know,
I love that. And I was good that you mentioned it because I was so sad to hear that the Star
Yeah,
Confectioner was closing. And just as an FYI, an aside, Anthony's aunt was my second grade teacher.
oh
So
my God.
we used to get those chocolate bunnies every year. So I loved going there, and I understand the reasons, but it's
yes,
sort of like what we started saying. Every town, every village should have a Sip and Soda, a Star Confectionery, a Candy Kitchen. And I was saying this to Terry, to my husband the other day. I said, every place we should have one of these in every town because they're getting less and less. Everything is becoming so luxury and
Homogenized.
yes, you walk into any place and it's like a Starbucks. And
Right.
so this type of business is essential. It really is essential to the character of a place.
I always like to tell people when they say, what does sip and soda in your eyes mean to you? And I think sip and soda tells a story. It tells a story about a community. It tells a story about the people that have been in this community that helped us get to where we are first and foremost. I mean, without, the community, we're not here for this long. Obviously my grandparents, my father and uncle did all the grinding. God thank them for that because that's what put me able to still continue to do this. But the people, as well as our staff is extremely important through all these years to keep us going and make me look good today. That's for
I,
darn sure.
I'm
But
getting
yeah,
the I'm getting the vibe, Mark, that your staff has been with you for a long time.
listen, I love these people. I mean, what they do and why, again, they make me look good. And I tell them that all the time. But my father and my uncle really taught me a lot about how to treat people and respect people. And so, I still do everything there. I do dishes, I mop the floors, I do, whatever has to be done. And I think that they like that sort of modeling of the behavior and I give them freedom. I trust. I was born through my environment here with my mom and my dad, and obviously the community could trust things. I trust things, and I just do, and I won't let that, even if things don't work out sometimes, I don't let that jade me. I really,
You keep it positive.
exactly.
Yeah.
Esperanza, what I was thinking when we got into the Lime Ricky conversation was also, I have to mention this, like the Lime Ricky is really Southampton's version of the Brooklyn egg cream, right? Like, I mean, like just that iconic, there's no egg cream like you get an egg cream in Queens or Brooklyn, as far as I'm concerned, right? And I mean, like the Lime
I
Ricky
gotta
is
test
just,
you on that, Irwin.
I'm talking about from a historical perspective,
Yes.
not implying you don't make an
Yes.
amazing egg cream, but like, Esperanza, I have to tell you, as we start to close this, Mark used the word earlier, like he's tingling. What I swear, I like have goosebumps from this guy's story. And by the way, Esperanza, if I go off a cliff, this is your new podcast partner. Okay. All right, because this guy's got the special sauce, no pun intended. I mean, really. I feel like I've known this guy all my life, and I met him for the first time half an hour ago.
But that's, I wanted to add to what you were saying, Mark, which is this is about your family. I mean, it's a testament to your family because yes, it's the community and the community supported this business and your family, but it's reciprocal because
Yes.
I don't know that a community would really necessarily support people that were unfriendly, or I don't know what to say about that, but it clearly is. People respected the work ethic. They respected your friendliness, the welcome, the whatever it was that secret sauce that your family has offered for that many years. And that's a testament to them
Yeah. No, thank you.
and to
Again,
you.
that was, obviously ingrained in me through the years. And, and even like right now, like my cousin Nicole, Jimmy's daughter, she's the youngest, I'm the youngest. She is in there helping me out. And for me, it's great. It's fun. With Anthony from the Star helping me out over the last month and a half. And he was in there the other day and there were two tables of his customers from Riverhead that came over because they heard that Anthony was there making chocolate.
Oh my gosh.
And then I said, get on and cook for them. And I said, I made them cook for them so they can get the same meal that they got.
What comes through so clearly for me, Mark, is how every industry is a small industry at the end of the day, right? Like everybody. I knew everyone in my industry. That's really the way it is. But Esperanza, and we almost should probably start closing with this. Yet again, we can bring back the immortal words of William Pickens Jr., right? And yes, this is a business, and Mark and his family are making a living from this business, but this is not someone extracting from the community. This is someone giving back so much to the community. Dare I say, even by just being there, because every place completely reciprocal. Yes, it's a business at the end of the day. No one's disputing that, but this is more than just a business. This is a town hall for the community.
A gathering place.
Right?
Listen, there's some guilt every now and then if I go away for a couple days that I'm like, I'm not there. I've learned how to get over that guilt a bit, but that's the type of stuff you're referencing there, both of you, about saying, to be there, to show up.
At the end of the day, it's a relationship business, and that's really what it is.
And to finish what you were saying, Irwin, so it's about community, not commodity. And
correct.
That is what we keep repeating. It's like a motto here.
It really is. Esperanza, I'm not trying to flatter our guests now as we close this podcast. This was one of the best guests we've ever had on Our Hamptons podcast. This guy, I'm talking about him like he's not here. Mark, we so appreciate how forthcoming, honest, and I know this is going to come through to our audience, Esperanza. The essence of Sippin' Soda is really coming through. And yes, we know, Mark, you're the brand of Sippin' Soda, to your point, and no question, but just the inherent goodness of this place and how important it is to you and your family and the legacy of continuing now the third generation, really just a remarkable, warm and fuzzy feeling for me, Esperanza.
Definitely. And any other, apart from chocolate bunnies, any other notable things coming up at Sippin' Soda?
No, the chocolate bunnies are taking stage. I am so excited. I'm like a kid again. This has been so much
Get in
fun.
a candy shop.
It is. Yeah, it really is. It's been great. And, I'm actually sad we're ending this podcast. I've enjoyed this. And it makes me feel good to hear both of you talk about my family's place. Because, that doesn't always come about. It's always usually me throwing it out there and things like that. So for me, there's the reward. There's the whole thing of why I get up at 5:15 every morning and go down there and just open that door up for the public and the community to come on in and tell me a story. Maybe I can throw a fun story back there and just meet people and feel good.
Fantastic. Mark, thank you so much. It was really such a pleasure, has been such a pleasure. I sat with you that day.
Yeah.
We chatted and I said, and we joked because you have like the last remaining payphone, I think, on Long Island, which is the phone for your place.
Yeah, for my business.
Exactly.
Yep. So everybody get yourself down to Sippin' Soda.
Yeah, I mean, because
some ice cream.
Whatever Mark and Sippin' Soda are going for, Esperanza, they've nailed it. They've nailed it.
I have a couple generations before me to thank for that. That's for sure.
It's old-fashioned goodness. It's the best. Yeah.
Fantastic.
And I thank both of you.
Keeping it going.
Esperanza and Irwin, thank you so much. This was a treat. It really was. This was a fun conversation.
Mark, I got to tell you, the pleasure was ours. And I say it sincerely. I know you and Esperanza know each other well. We've never met. I feel like I've known you my whole life. I mean, you're that kind of guy. So really, thank you.
Good conversations connect.
Exactly. And thank you so much, really, for the conversation. Fantastic. And Esperanza, as always, a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank
Thanks so much for joining us. New episodes of Our Hamptons are released every other Tuesday. Find them wherever you get your podcasts.